Virgin.
Beauty.
Bitch. Podcast. Inspiring women to overcome social stereotypes and share unique life experiences without fear of being defiantly different. Your hosts, Christopher and Heather. Let's talk, shall we?
It's a journey we all take. It's just that for some, the journey is a little longer, and for others, a lot shorter. It's the journey of virginity. Think about it. Everybody has a virginity story. For women, though, that story typically has a deeper meaning that goes beyond just sex or ego, as it might be for a boy. In 2020, we spoke with Amanda McCracken, a 41-year-old virgin who had just written a piece for the New York Times titled, "Does My Virginity Have a Shelf Life?" It's a really compelling conversation, and we're really thrilled to replay it for you here. But also remind you to join us March 18th, the spring equinox, as we host more conversations with authors, with researchers, and experts about this force that doesn't get the credit or the blame, but initiates much of the shame and guilt women feel around intimacy or being good girled into enduring joyless sex over a lifetime. Join us March 18th as we introduce our 4-part Virgin series. But first, enjoy this conversation with a 41-year-old virgin, Amanda McCracken.
Thank you.
Now, for you, I heard you put a piece out in a television piece you did that a lot of people, the virginity thing is either comes down to religious dogma, right, which get married first before you lose your virginity, patriarchal dogma, which comes down to your image or slut shaming. You're either unattractive or you have a poor body image of yourself, so you don't venture into that field. You're a prude or selfish or don't play well with others or whatever it might be. But for you, like, what was your inspiration into hanging on to this thing that we socially feel people should lose as quickly as possible?
Well, it's kind of a complex question or answer, I guess. I would say it really, for me, it changed over the years. I did start out, and I have written about this in my teen years. I mean, I did grow up in the church, and I feel like when I say that, people automatically are like, aha, I knew it. I knew she was brainwashed. But, there was that seed that was planted, when I was 16, 17, and I did take one of those like vows of chastity. But at that time, to me, it felt empowering, actually. And it didn't seem like a big deal. Also, I mean, I was kind of a late bloomer. I didn't get kissed till I was 16. And like sex wasn't something that was like a pressure. So it was like no big deal. And then in my early 20s in college, I think virginity for me was, again, I still didn't really have my first college. I didn't have a boyfriend until maybe my senior year in college. And I felt like, well, a lot of my girlfriends were starting to have sex for the first time. To me, it kind of felt like still something that felt empowering, like especially in college when it felt like other things in my life were spinning out of control. That was one thing that I felt like I still had control over, and I feel like a lot of women also were feeling like they would have sex in order to build a relationship, and that wasn't really something I was interested in, or didn't feel like that's something I needed to do. I also have compared it to, I think a little bit, it was kind of maybe starting then. I grew up as a runner, a long distance runner, and I had a lot of friends who had eating disorders, mild to severe. And, just as I think those eating disorders were really about control, when other things in their life were falling apart, I think sex for me was a little bit that way. And I don't mean to say it in a way that I was like didn't mean to be mean to men. I think I actually got accused of being selfish and mean for like withholding this. But to me, it was something that was still, I mean, I kind of hate to use the word precious, but because people cringe at that. But to me, it was important. Um, and I think as I got older, I did have a couple of relationships in my 20s where I did get really close to having sex, and those men left me or ended the relationship for one reason or another. And so that made me feel even more like, well, at least, you know, if I even if I'm in a relationship and it ends, at least I still have my virginity. And that might sound ridiculous to some people, but um, that's what mattered to me. Um, and I think, and then once I got into my 30s, I realized that this part isn't quite as inspiring, but it may help other people along the way. I felt like my virginity, I I still wasn't having sex because I wasn't getting into the committed and loving relationship that I said I wanted to be in. Um, and not because I wasn't dating, but I was dating men who would never who would never love or commit to me. So I was in a kind of self-sabotage situation where um, I would never get into the situation again where I would offer a man to have sex and he would deny me, which happened one time in my 20s. Um, and so I guess, you know, what did it say, once bitten, twice shy sort of thing. So I had to stop that cycle eventually to get into the kind of relationship I was seeking.
No, I get this sense you're being tugged on two sides here, with what is considered, you know, socially acceptable at a certain age, and then your own personal convictions. Now you're on with Katie Couric
Mm-hmm.
at one point, and she accused you of the fairy tale princess syndrome.
Yes, off camera.
um, that must have stung.
Yeah, it did definitely sting. I really felt ashamed because I felt like, okay, here I poured my heart out. I was honest, and yet I felt like I was kind of being reprimanded then by somebody that I really respected. And I'm glad she was being honest with me. But I felt like, you know, we live in an age where women are supposed to be supportive of each other, of choosing to do what they want with their own bodies. And it's almost, I almost feel like if you want to tell everybody you're going to have lots of sex with lots of different people, that is more protected in media these days than telling people, no, I actually want to have sexual intercourse with um, a man in a loving and committed relationship, and I'm waiting for that. And that just really irritates people. So
Why do you think that is? Like, how did we kind of, because before I feel that society's actually flipped on that, where that was, you know, it used to be what was more protected and now it's changed.
right. That's something I've been trying to grasp. There's actually a bit of, I think people are intimidated by women that state this, almost like there's a sense um, of power, actually. There's two things. I think there's that aspect. Um, and if you look back in like you know, history of Greek tragedies, there's discussion of these like virgin choruses, and there was great strength in these characters in the tragedies. And first, I think there's a bit of that makes people really uncomfortable. And I think also it's kind of like I think the easiest thing for people to compare it to is diets these days. Um, you know, sobriety is a lot more accepted. In fact, it's becoming almost trendier. In bars, there are a lot more mocktails. But in the past, if you said, no, I don't drink, or I'm not drinking right now, it really made other people feel uncomfortable, as if, oh, are you judging me? Should I not be drinking? That sort of thing. Or the same thing to do with a lot more people are gluten-free. If you go to a party and people, if you tell somebody, I'm gluten-free or I'm dairy-free, people feel like it's a judgment on what they're eating. So I think that's probably a stronger reason why people have responded the way to me that they have.
I think also with the freedom of women's sexuality in the advent of the pill and et cetera, that if you are not expressing that freedom that you've now been given, that you are somehow betraying the this freedom where the women have worked so hard to gain. You're wasting it.
Yeah, I think that's spot on in a lot of ways. Like betrayal is a good way. But I think actually women did, I mean, they certainly helped free women in a lot of ways in the 1970s, but I think they did women a bit of a disservice when it came to sexual freedom, because I think there's this missing piece of intimacy, that even if you're using your freedom and having sex with lots of men, I think that there are more and more women I've talked to who feel like they feel like they're not actually getting what they need. So it's kind of like binging, again, back to food, without getting the nutrients they actually need. And they can, yeah. So
Yeah,
I like
absolutely.
what you've said, because like what you're saying, I think is like these different waves of the feminist movement that we've seen. But I feel that we're still getting there right now, but that one of the main pieces, and you mentioned this as well, is getting to the point where we respect what each woman wants to do with her body, but in the same way, if she wants to have sex or if she doesn't.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I agree that that's something that we're coming around to, hopefully, with regards to respecting women's choices around not having sex if they choose not to, and feeling safe. And I mean, for me, a lot of it boiled down to safety, and I think a lot of people can relate to that, whether they're having lots of sex or no sex.
Yeah, this idea of like, one of the things that fascinated me about your story is that you went to great lengths to appease your own motivations of what you felt was right. You went to great lengths. You interviewed a lot of people from a different forms of, right? You a consecrated virgin, professors, like you went to great lengths to justify your own abstinence. Why do you think that was?
Oh, I guess I really question if I was messed up in the head, if I had wasted all my time. I think that was the biggest piece. Had I wasted all my time, you know, with several men that I hadn't had sex with, that I knew I had incredible chemistry with, and I thought, in a lot of ways, my life has been about living incredible experiences, from travel to athletics or whatever it might be. And so I felt like I was living like a hypocrite in this sexual way in some ways. I mean, I was having other great sexual experiences, even if I wasn't having intercourse, but I thought, well, crap, have I just blown all these great chances to have this incredible sex? And, and so I wanted to talk to different people who'd experienced life in different ways, and to see if if there was kind of any glimmer in there that would, I don't know, either guide me in a different direction or give me some peace of mind that I hadn't screwed up, that I hadn't wasted my time.
That you made
And
the
it
right
sounded
decision.
like in the write-up, through that kind of, journey and quest, you found that, the pattern and the type of men that you were dating, but also the pattern of, what's even deeper behind that. So it sounds like it was a quest that really got you to this next chapter in your life.
Yeah, I don't think I would have gotten to this point if I hadn't asked a lot of those questions. And this may seem corny, but I've always loved The Wizard of Oz, and it feels like, it's kind of like the hero's journey sort of thing. Not that I'm calling myself a hero, but Dorothy had to go through all of these trials, or so to speak, and she thought she had to speak to the wizard to figure it all out. But in the end, the good witch tells her, you always had the power to go home. You just had to believe it yourself. And I think for me, it really boiled down to like believing that I really was worthy of love in order to be attracted to that kind of relationship that I wanted in order to have sex, if that makes sense.
Mm.
You that line that you just mentioned, you are worthy of love. I think I read somewhere that that was a sentence spoken to you to make you understand of how important you were as a human being, as a woman.
Yeah, that's something Dave told me, my husband told me, about around this time, actually, last spring, maybe in April or so. And I definitely, when he said that, I just wanted to jump out of my skin. Like, it's like, no, you're a liar. Like that you're not supposed to say that sort of thing. Like that, this does not feel comfortable at all. And that was telling in and of itself, I think. And he sat in that discomfort while I sat in that. And I think that was pretty powerful.
Mm.
That he didn't break where you were. You needed to break out of your shell, and he just allowed you to peck away till you broke out.
Yeah, I think he gave me the space to change and to believe that I was worthy of love. And yeah, that space, I think space and time was really important. And I think he was key in that.
It sounds like you also gave that truly to yourself in the type of men that you were starting to attract, right? Because I feel like your agency in this, with a person who was on your level and where you were at, I just think that takes two to tango. But I'm seeing a lot of you giving yourself what you needed.
Yeah, I think I was doing the work, so to speak, to get to the point where I would attract that kind of love. Um, but it had taken a lot of time. And I did speak about writing in my journal. This was a suggestion made by my therapist, to write in my journal every day. I'm ready for I'm worthy of and ready for a deeply intimate and loving relationship. And
That's beautiful.
it came along eventually.
So there's a happy ending to all this, as far as you're concerned. You are, as you just mentioned, married now, and pregnant as well.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. My 5-month appointment is next week. So
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
go.
Oh, look at that smile. This is so lovely.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. So
I'm just curious your take on young girls who are under this pressure of sex in order to feel loved, feel worthy, and their virginity becomes this bargaining chip for them to get what they believe would be a worthwhile payback in love. What would you say to young girls who are going through that process?
Yeah, I've thought about that in case I do have a little girl. And even if I have a little boy, it's important, I think, to say some of the same things. And um, I I think what's important, I don't have like a, you know, a prescription or
Mhm.
anything, but I feel like it's important that um there's that that girls feel a sense of safety, girls or boys.
Mhm.
I think it's important now I feel like, you know, for me, you know, I always said, okay, I'm waiting for love and commitment. I'm waiting for love and commitment. But to be honest, I really trusted Dave before I ever loved him and before I had the commitment. And I think that's something that all these other men that I was like crazy about, not all of them I was crazy about, but you know, especially the ones I was crazy about, I did not trust them. And I think, you know, really like instilling in these girls and boys this sense of trust and knowing what that feels like is also, that's tricky, I think, for, you know, for kids to really understand maybe what that sense of trust is. But um, I think it's important as kids are developing relationships that they trust that person that they may be considering having sex with.
So just to set the record straight, you're not against sex per se. Your journey is unique to you, but you're not judging others who have that kind of activity before marriage, so to speak.
Absolutely not. Yeah. I would not encourage anybody to follow the same path that I followed. It's, I don't know that I don't think I would do it in any other way maybe now, but um, I can look back and see where I faltered and the patterns that I wish I hadn't made. And I hope that if anything, people can learn from my patterns and what I've, you know, what I have seen along the way. But no, I don't expect anybody to wait until they're 41 to have sex for sure.
Uh,
And technically, I had sex before we had our wedding ceremony. We actually had one in September, one in October, and we're having another in May. So that's a whole nother story too.
but I think what was important to you was the setting and the, how would I put it? The entire feel of that exchange. It was something that you were comfortable with, and that it seemed to me anyway, from just reading about your expression of it, it seemed it's something that of your choosing at that time, regardless of a ring or not.
hmm
It was how you felt about it.
Right. I think choice is a huge piece of it. And that's something I didn't mention when I was mentioning trust, but I think, yeah, that when if kids are deciding to have sex, that it's their choice. And I did feel a lot of freedom actually in having sex, as opposed to feeling um, worried that it wasn't going to get me what I wanted. So, yeah,
So there was no pressure involved.
no pressure whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's an important key, is to be aware of that, whether or not you feel pressure in that moment or prior to
Right.
that moment.
That's really key. Absolutely. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about was the movement of the virginity movement, of basically sequestering young girls through religious dogma to abstain.
What's your question?
Basically, it's how do you feel about that kind of dogma being put onto young girls as their guidance? It's not a personal guidance, it's more of a dogma that is determining whether or not this is the good girl or the bad girl.
Um, yeah, I don't, um, I don't believe in, like, I think as you're saying, like the dogma that's telling, you mean like the um
Like purity balls,
right,
yeah,
okay.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't like the mandate. What I think what like girls should be receiving is feeling empowered to have a choice, and not pressured to, you know, have sex as soon as possible to get it over with. But choice and freedom is, I think, more important than like doing what, like, how would I say, like some organization says is right or wrong. Because I think I felt like in my gut, this is what I wanted, and I was being persecuted by society and media for following my gut. And that's what part of the reason that I went on this journey interviewing, talking to all kinds of people from the rabbi to this porn star, was like, I just kind of wanted to figure out if it was okay to follow my gut. And I think, yeah, that young, like girls and boys need to feel empowered to follow their gut and feel like they have the choice and the freedom to make their own choice with their own body.
You're here. You're here.
You're here.
We really, really thank you for taking the time out to share your story with us and your expression of your experience. Hopefully, the point is to get that perspective out to others so they can decipher this for themselves.
And with so much of society, you know, pushing girls and women in this direction, it is so refreshing to hear staying true to yourself through your choice of virginity, and all the layers that came with it to where you are now. You know, it helps each time. I think you talk about this, which I'm sure is I would assume daunting each time to put yourself out there, but I really do think that it helps change the weigh scales for how women can approach their own sexuality, and how men and boys also see how women are engaging with their sexuality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to share my story.
We appreciate it so much.
It's our privilege to have you with us. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Thank you.
And you've been listening to
The Virgin,
The Beauty,
and the Bitch.
Mm-mm.
Ooh, the 41-year-old virgin.